Hey guys, this is BennyStraw452 here. Welcome to my first video breaking down the MMA fights this weekend. We're going to start off right away with Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod. This fight is a banger. Straight up, I love this fight. I'm interested to see how Lee comes back from all that time off. You know, he's coming off of a loss to the current champion, Charles Oliveira. And man, D-Rod has just been on a tear since joining the UFC, man. He's only lost one fight. You know, he absolutely demolished Mike Perry. He took out Preston Parsons in the first round his last time out. You know, he's been active. He's been good. It's good. It's really interesting. This is a real step up in competition for him, though. You know, Lee's been in there with the best of the lightweight division. He's only fought at 170 once, though, which is what's really intriguing to me about this fight. The last time Lee was at 170 was against RDA, and it didn't fare well for him. He lost by submission. So I'm really interested to see how he does it this time around. I was really intrigued by his decision to go back up to 170. I thought his best future was at 155. But maybe he knows something that we don't. Right off the bat, I'm going to say this. If the right Lee shows up Saturday night, then there is absolutely no reason he should lose this fight. There is no reason. Kevin Lee has all the tools. He's really talented. He's athletic. He's got the wrestling. He's got the striking. He's got the finishing ability. The only thing lacking from Kevin Lee is his fight IQ. Lee consistently makes the mistake of playing into his opponent's games. You know, he's tried to box with Iaquinta in both fights. He whirled around in Tony and Charles's guard. His fight IQ consistently lacks in fights. His mentality isn't always there. One night he'll show up and he'll look like the best of the world, a future champ. You know, the way he dominated Edson Barboza, the way he took out Michael Chiesa in the first round. He shows up like that, and you think, wow, this guy could really be the future champion. And then literally his next time out, he loses. And he loses to somebody you think he should have beat. Like, I'll use the second Al fight for an example. Lee improved dramatically since their first fight, but Iaquinta didn't. Al did improve between fights, but he was still more or less the same fighter that Lee fought years beforehand. But Lee made the same mistakes in that fight that he did in their first fight. He tried to box with Al. He played into Al's strengths. He didn't fight where he was best. And that's why Al got the nod both times over Lee. The first time they fought, Lee was young. He was green, you know. And then he comes off of a first-round knockout of Gregor Gillespie. And I remember watching that fight live, and I'm like, holy cow, this is a new Kevin Lee. This guy's a real problem. But then his next fight out, he goes and he gets submitted by Charles. And, you know, there's no shame in that. Charles is elite. Charles is good. But just watching Lee in that fight, he didn't even look like the same guy. He didn't look like he was as confident as before. And then, of course, he's taken a lot of time off. You know, he's been out for over a year now. And for a while there, he was even talking about retiring. So his mentality going into this fight is what really intrigues me the most, because Daniel Rodriguez is no slouch. D-Rod is the real deal. He's a hot prospect. I could see him in the top 15 soon. He's real. He's got crisp boxing combinations and real power in his hands. His jab is good. His straight punches in general are fantastic. He does tend to loop a little bit. He does tend to get a little bit wild and start throwing haymakers a little bit, but he does it. He sets them up well. And that's why he's able to land them consistently. Against Mike Perry, he almost landed at will. He landed almost anything he wanted at Mike Perry. And I have to say that in that Mike Perry fight, that was the most beautiful display of D-Rod's jab in his career. He used that jab. He pumped it in Perry's face. Perry couldn't see anything coming after it because the jab was just right there all the time, busting him up. You know, he's got a dangerous jab, and he uses it to set up his left hand so well. He uses it to set up everything. He uses it to back you up. He uses it to offset your pressure. He uses it to set up combinations. He's got such crisp boxing, man. And that's where Kevin Lee's got to be careful. If he does the same mistake he made against Al, or he's made in previous fights, and he fights to D-Rod's strengths, he tries to box with D-Rod or whatever, he could find himself in trouble, man. Because while this is Rodriguez's biggest step up in competition to date, this is a winnable fight for him, man. Like I like Kevin Lee. You know, he has all the tools to be a top guy, but that mentality is worrying me, and it always has worried me. His mentality is just so inconsistent. Each fight, it's different. And with this over a year layoff, and his last fight's results, you know, they've been mixed. I mean, he was going to come right back and fight Sean Brady. I like this matchup a little bit better for him. I think the Brady fight would have been too much too soon because Sean Brady's really good. But, man, D-Rod's no joke, man. And this is a chance for Rodriguez to really put his name out there against a top guy and show him that he's ready for ranked guys. I mean, Kevin Lee's a really decent step up. Like remember, D-Rod's last fight was Preston Parsons, who was making his UFC debut. Kevin Lee is a huge step up from that. He's a huge step up from Nicholas Dalby. He's a huge step up from Preston Parsons. He's a big step up from Mike Perry. And here's what worries me about D-Rod in this matchup, was that Mike Perry was not only able to take him down, but control him. So right off the bat, I have to say that if Lee gets D-Rod down, D-Rod is not getting back up. Lee is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Hands down. He has a fantastic double leg takedown. He has fantastic control, even if he does tend to sit in the guard a little too much. His ground and pound is vicious, man. It is vicious. It is damaging. It hurts you. It's brutal. I mean, just look what he did to Barboza, man. It's brutal. He's really good at taking the back and sinking in that RNC. Leah's grappling is elite of the elite, man. And he showed it against Charles, even though he lost the fight. And he showed it against Tony, even though he lost the fight. Lee is good, man. His biggest issue is he tends to be a little too confident in his wrestling sometimes. He doesn't always set up those takedowns, and he did that in the second Al fight. When he did shoot, it was more often than not a blind shot. And Al was a wrestler himself. He was able to see those shots coming and defend them. But when Lee did get him down, he kept Al there. He kept him there. So that's going to lead into my prediction for this fight. If Lee comes out here with the right mentality and he looks good, and this year layoff doesn't affect him, and he comes out looking like the Kevin Lee we all know he can be, then I think he 100% wins this fight. I think with the way D-Rod tends to loop his shots sometimes, the way he tends to put everything into them and kind of almost offset his own balance throwing that left hand, I think Lee can easily duck under that, get in it, because if you can get underneath D-Rod's punch, man, his hips are right there. His hips are right there to grab on and put him onto the ground. So I really think that if Kevin Lee comes out here with the right mentality, I think he's going to be able to see Rodriguez's punches coming. I think he's going to be able to duck under him, and I think he's going to be able to get him down. Rodriguez has yet to fight a wrestler like Kevin Lee. Here's my concern, is how long will it take Kevin Lee to shoot? I know what Lee likes to do, and he likes to beat opponents in their own game. And that's where it gets dangerous, because I have a sinking suspicion Lee is going to try to box with D-Rod. And if he does, it's going to be a bad night for him, man. Lee's got good striking, don't get me wrong. But, man, dude, if he tries to just straight up box with D-Rod, he's going to have a long night, man. D-Rod is just too good in that department. He's going to box him up. If Lee does tend to stay on the feet, I think he needs to keep it at kicking range. But even then, man, Daniel Rodriguez is so good at closing that distance. It's hard for me, man. I just don't see a way Lee can win this fight on the feet. I think D-Rod is just too good at boxing, man. He's the real deal. He honestly is. So here's what I've seen from Rodriguez. Moving forward, the man is a terror. He unleashes boxing combinations on you. He backs you up with the jab. He just punishes you, man. He's got a slick guillotine for those who shoot as a counter. He's just slick. Backing up, he's a lot more hittable. He tends to try to go for the counter punch. He tends to focus so much on his own strikes and landing them that he doesn't always worry about what's coming back his way, and he gets hit. He got hit a lot against Parsons before that fight was over, man. He got hit against Dalby. He gets hit, man. He gets hit a lot. However, we've only seen him get dropped once, and he recovered so quick. Dwight Grant was able to clip him and drop him, but then he recovered so quick and then finished Grant in that same round. So I do believe that Lee could potentially hurt D-Rod on the feet. I don't see that being Lee's path to victory. I think Lee needs to take this down, and I think if the right Kevin Lee shows up, he should be able to get this fight to the ground and just punish D-Rod. Just punish D-Rod there. I think that is Lee's best path to victory here, man. Is he has to get this fight to the ground where his strength is. Daniel Rodriguez, to win this fight, obviously he has to keep the fight standing. He has to defend the takedowns. But I think his biggest weapon is going to be the jab and the leg kicks. D-Rod's got good leg kicks, man. Kevin Lee has good pressure. And like I said, when D-Rod is backing up, he's a lot more hittable. He's a lot more open to counters, including takedowns. I think Kevin Lee has the pressure to back D-Rod up. I really do. I think he has the pressure and the power to back D-Rod up. But that issue being is that D-Rod on the back foot can still hit you hard, man. He's still a good counterpuncher on the back foot. It's just he's a lot more hittable when backing up. But if D-Rod works that jab, man, if he times that jab, he can offset Lee's pressure. He's done it before. He's done it well. That's what he did to Mike Perry. If he can just pump that jab in Lee's face and just time it well, so when Lee's coming in, he just boom, tags him right with the jab. He can do it, man. He can offset that pressure from Lee, and then that opens up, of course, other combinations that he can unload on Lee. So I think the jab is going to be a big tool for D-Rod in this fight, and the leg kicks. Lee is real heavy on that lead leg, man. He's real heavy. He almost pistons off of it when he's throwing and when he shoots for takedowns. He really just puts a lot of weight on that lead leg, man, for everything that he does. If D-Rod can work that lead leg kick, he can work that calf kick, he can do a lot of damage to Lee, I fear. And the more damage he does to that lead leg, the less explosive Lee is going to be. And that's going to work in D-Rod's favor. However, I like what I've seen from Kevin Lee recently, man. His mentality seems to be there. I think he's going to be able to get this done. I think he's going to go out there. I think he's going to take D-Rod down, and I think he's going to beat D-Rod on the ground. I don't think he's going to finish him, so I'm going to take Kevin Lee by a decision. I think it'll be a fairly one-sided decision. I think D-Rod's going to have his moments, specifically in the first round. I think early on, Lee's going to try to strike with him, and D-Rod's going to make him want to shoot. And once Lee shoots, man, I see him taking D-Rod down and just punishing him. So, yeah, for this fight, I'm going to take Kevin Lee by a decision. But it's good. It's a good fight, man, and I'm excited to see how Kevin Lee looks after all this time off, and I'm excited to see how D-Rod steps up to better competition. And that brings us to the main event of the evening. Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. Man, this fight is a great fight, man. It's got Fight of the Year written all over it, guys. Like, I guarantee this fight's not going to go to the ground. It's going to be a stand-up affair. These guys are going to stand and bang. It's going to be fantastic. That being said, it's a hard fight to break down, man. These guys have similar styles. They're both kickboxers with very heavy kicks, man. They both throw great kicks. Edson's got probably, pound for pound, the best kicks on the roster. They're fast, they're powerful. He throws them without any telegraph, really, and they're just so damaging. Giga might not have the better kicks, but he might be better at setting them up. Edson tends to force his kicks a little bit, man. He tends to force that kicking game a bit and just try to do whatever he can to get it going because he knows that's his best route to victory. Whereas Giga is very much more calm and collected when it comes to his kicking game. He sets them up a lot better. He doesn't just blast them. And his body kick might be the best weapon he has, man. It's so damaging. 3 TKO finishes by liver kick. It's a dangerous body kick, man. The Giga kick, as they call it. That being said, Edson looked so good against Shane Burgos. Like, normally in his past, when Edson's kicking game was taken away, he became a lot more vulnerable, a lot more easier to hit, a lot more easy to damage and beat. Against Burgos, man, he showed improved counter punching in the pocket. Most of that fight took place in the pocket, though Edson did get a really good leg kicking game going. But man, he was countering Shane consistently in the pocket, doing a lot of damage there, and I was really impressed. He got hit a lot too, but just so good, man. He had such a good performance in that fight. That fight was a banger as well. I think this fight might even be better, man. They're so stylistically similar. It's such a competitive fight on paper, and I hope it lives up to that too. This fight could either be a first round finish, a 5-round war. I don't know, man. I personally am really having a hard time breaking it down and finding a winner for you guys, but I'm sure as hell gonna try. We're gonna start off with Edson, who again his last fight was against Shane Burgos, and he looked absolutely fantastic. The weaknesses I've seen with Edson is he doesn't like being pressured. He doesn't like being backed up. He doesn't like being against the cage. He tends to panic a little bit and just try to circle away. It's what got him knocked out against Giga, got him in trouble against Khabib. But I mean, who doesn't lose to Khabib? The guy was 29-0. And he does tend to force his kicks a little bit. He tends to just kind of blast them in with very little setup, just tries really hard to get that kicking game going, even if it's not necessarily there. He didn't really do that against Shane. He did do it a little bit. There was times where he would throw kicks when he probably shouldn't have. But for the most part, he did a good job of throwing kicks when it was appropriate to throw a kick. If he does that, if he forces the kicking game against Giga, man, if he does what he did against Gaethje and tries to go kick for kick without regards of what's coming back or setup or whatever, he's going to get punished, dude. He's not going to be well for him. He can't do that. He's got to be technical. He's got to set up his kicks. He's got to be methodical. He's got to mix it up too. I would like Edson to not just stay at kicking range in this fight. I'd like him to mix it up and get into the pocket and box with Giga a little bit too, because I think he would have a lot of success doing that. I really do. If he stays just at kicking range and tries to go kick for kick with Giga, then it's a toss-up in my opinion. If that's how this fight goes, then it could go either way. But if Edson manages to set up his kicks well instead of forcing it, if he manages to mix it up, fight at kicking range and fight in the pocket, then I think he's going to have a lot of success. However, Edson struggles to adjust in fights. When fights don't start not going his way, he struggles to adjust and change what he's going, and tries to just force his original game plan to work, which ends up putting him in more trouble. He can't do that against Giga. He's got to be able to adjust. I guarantee there's going to be a moment in this fight where it stops going his way. And if it does, he's going to have to adjust. He can't just keep going back to the original game plan. Otherwise, Giga's going to put him away, man. And that leads me to Giga. Giga's best option here is to stay at kicking range and blast the body. Edson was leaving his body wide open against Burgos, and Burgos had a lot of success going to it. If Giga can do that, but at kicking range, so he doesn't give Edson the chance to counter in the pocket, he can very much win this fight, man. I honestly can see him hurting Edson to the body and putting him away. And that's going to lead me to my prediction. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Giga's going to hurt him to the body and put him away in a third-round TKO finish. That's how I think this fight's going to go. I think it's going to be a quick feeling-out process in the first round, and then they're just going to go to war for 2 rounds, man. And they're just going to go to war, but like maybe midway through the third, I just see in this fight, even though I do think it's going to be a war, and both guys are going to have success, I just see Giga being able to more rhythmically establish his kicking game. I see him being able to find success more often, land more damage, land more often than Edson. And I think he's going to punish that body every chance he gets. And I think midway through the third round, it's going to add up and Edson's body is going to fail on him and he's going to get put away. So that's my prediction for this fight. It's a really hard fight though, man. It could go either way, honestly. Either one of these guys could end it in a split second. Either one of these guys could take the nod here. Honestly, the only true winners here in this fight is the fans. No matter what happens, man, this fight is most likely going to be a banger. We all win here. I can't wait for it, guys. My official prediction is Giga Chikadze by third round TKO. but I'm not counting Edson out. He absolutely can win this fight, and I honestly can see that happening too. I think it's going to come down to who establishes their kicking game better, who is more methodical about it, who has the better setups, who is able to go to it in the more efficient manner. That's who's going to win this fight. Anyways, guys, that's my breakdowns. Thanks for joining in. In the comments, please open up a debate or discussion about who you think is going to win these fights and how. I love to see that kind of thing. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the fight Saturday night.